high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. I'm Jen Mauro, and sitting right next to me, rolling his eyes already, is Mike Walsh.
I was just thinking to myself that this is your second recording today. You did your knockoff show earlier, fake Talking Catholic, whatever that. What's that called?
It is called Better Together.
Right.
It is nothing to do with Talking Catholic.
Don't you guys talk Catholic stuff?
Yes, but we opened it up to today. We had So Better Together is co-hosted by myself and Emily Italia from the Diocese of Trenton. Mm-hmm. And today we had somebody on from the Diocese of Camden, as well as Diocese of Metuchen.
Wait a second. Did the Diocese of Camden get approval?
It was a deacon running a program called Lenten Date Nights during Lent.
Okay, we're definitely going to need a conversation about things getting approved. But okay.
And then also we talked to a priest in Metuchen about Lent.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to finally branch out. That was the whole point of Better Together, was to include all of the Diocese of New Jersey and beyond.
And if people want to hear Better Together, where can they go?
They can go to Domestic Church Media, and we air on Saturdays and also on YouTube, and then we air twice during the week.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Whereas this show also airs on Domestic Church Media on Sunday mornings and Monday afternoons, and we have the wisdom to not put it on YouTube so people don't feel like they have to put their face on when they come here. This is a podcast. We want you to roll in your Crocs and jeans and whatever's required. We're audio only. You know, John Kalitz has been asking me to make this a YouTube show for forever, and I refuse because I be honest with you, some days I just don't feel pretty.
You didn't do your hair right.
That's right.
Curl it.
You know, I'm getting older, getting fatter. What are you gonna do?
Well, today I was very aware of the fact that I was like, I think I only have eyeliner on one eye, and I'm going to be in front of this camera.
Ladies and gentlemen, please watch that YouTube video and find out if she had full makeup on or not. You know, the funny thing is I was planning on not goofing around at the beginning of this episode. Yeah. That didn't last. But we do have big news.
We didn't even get through the intro. What's our big news?
Our big news is the Catholic Star Herald has published its first video in quite a while, specifically focused on the combination of, or the strange confluence of Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day, which has only happened for the third time since 1945, this week.
Sure it's not the first time since 1945?
No, it happened in 2018 as well.
Oh, 2018. Okay.
Yeah,
it's a great video. We went. Well, you all went out. I didn't get to go, but a big team got to go out to.
Myself, John Kalitz, Paul Worthington, Pete Sanchez. Mm-hmm. We all went out to Giannina's restaurant, and in
Woodbury.
In Woodbury, and the backstory of this was, because there are 2 days in the Lenten calendar which cannot be dispensed with. Mm-hmm. You must fast. You must abide by the meat restrictions, and that is Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. But we I knew I was going to have to put out a press release about that, and we'd have to have some storytelling about how listen, one meal, you make it a good one, but one meal, but no meat. So our Vicar General was like, "Yeah, you know what you guys ought to do? You got to put out a nice, seafood recipe, non-meat recipe." Mm-hmm. And we were like, "Oh, that is a really good idea." And we just planned on putting something in the newspaper and doing a fun little graphic on the on social media. And then you got involved, and it turned into something else completely. And we didn't know about it till the next week. We knew about it. So I brought it to your attention on Friday. You had a whole new plan by Monday.
No,
and told us about it by Thursday.
I would say it went like this. You had a plan on Thursday. You told me about it Thursday. I had a plan by Friday morning at 10 a.m. Okay. That is how we roll the Catholic Star Herald. We're not letting grass grow under our feet.
That is true. One downside, though. You needed the communications group to actually put it together, and we like to think about things for weeks.
Right, yeah. No, I gave you 28 hours. Actually, it's exactly 28 hours because John Kalitz walks by my office every day and goes, 28 hours. But it came out wonderful. Y'all went to the restaurant, and the chef and co-owner did an amazing job. He cooked a crab and shrimp pasta with a blush sauce, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, and over top of capellini. And it was, Chef Fidel was great. He was really, really fantastic. That restaurant is outstanding. You can see this video on all the Catholic Star Herald social media platforms, including YouTube. And it's not too long. It's only like 5 minutes. But, I talk about food a lot on this podcast. We've done a couple of cooking shows in the past. But I will tell you, John and I had such a great time doing it that we really want to do it more often. But mostly if I can be the host.
Yes. And we are actually doing it again soon because Clergy Kitchen starts in another week. And for those who don't know, Clergy Kitchen is where our priests cook meatless meals for Lent. And John Kalich will be going out with Pete Sanchez once again to do another cooking video.
Except I won't be a part of it, so I'm going to be less excited.
I think that, you know what, I don't think we have one for next week. So do you want to cook? Why don't you cook something?
Well, if you give me the least amount of notice possible, I can definitely whip something
I'll let you know on Tuesday.
Okay.
28 hours before publication.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
No, it's really good. I do hope people go see it. Actually, that restaurant was fantastic, and it's a great recipe. Very simple to put together. And you can certainly do, if you have a seafood allergy, we gave you some options for people with seafood allergies. If you don't want to do gluten, we got some gluten things. And what was there was one other thing I had in there too. What was the other thing?
Yeah, I think we substituted vegetables.
Oh, non-dairy. We came up with a couple of non-dairy options too. So, yeah, lots of things to do.
That's you really being very forward-thinking as a cook yourself.
Well, you know what? Because I cook a lot and I'm always looking up at recipes, I appreciate the fact that most well-known online recipe writers, when you get down to the notes section, they do a really good job of, if you're thinking about this, here's an alternative. If you're thinking about this, here's an alternative. As a matter of fact, I was making wool bread a few weeks ago. And it called for a filling of crushed frozen raspberries, which I did not have on hand, but I was able to figure out how to make a nice cinnamon sugar inlay instead. It was outstanding.
Yum.
Yeah, it was really good.
You could make that. Wool bread for our, though it's not meat. I mean, it's meatless, but it's not a meal, but it could be.
Yeah, I could also make it pork filled too. Would that help?
No.
Okay. Well, see what I can do.
I feel like we should bring our guest in because we're talking about Clergy Kitchen. And maybe he can suggest other people I can ask to cook for us.
Although I don't know if he himself is capable of cooking.
I have asked him in the past.
And he is not?
He can defend himself.
You know what he could do? He could have me cook and he could just stand next to me and tell a story. Oh. See, that's the way we need to do it. There we go. Okay, so who do we have with us?
We have Father Adam Cichoski, who is the rector of Camden's Cathedral, as well as the director of Vocations for the Diocese of Camden.
That is correct.
Hi.
And you two got to spend the entire day together yesterday.
Yeah.
We did.
I am sorry to hear that for Father Adam, but I'm sure it was a great time.
It was fun.
I heard you guys had a great time. So the reason we wanted to have you on was because of that. You guys took a tour of one of the seminaries we send our young folks to. And it was Dunwoodie, which is actually, that's not his real name. His real name is St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's in Yonkers, New York, which happens to be the alma mater of our wonderful bishop, Bishop Sullivan. He went there. Matter of fact, when I went, first time I visited, walked in the door, looked at the hallway, happened to go, they have all the graduating classes lining the hallway, went literally 2 steps, and there was his picture from the graduating class of 1972. I was very happy about it. And I picked him out right away.
Did you?
Yeah. He has a very recognizable face.
I took a picture of the picture yesterday.
Good move.
Yes.
But yeah, you guys apparently had a great time. I feel bad that I didn't go.
Yeah, it was fun. We even have Bishop Sullivan has a tree there, so we took a picture in front of his tree. So any alumni who's bishop and comes back to celebrate Mass, they plant a tree.
Oh, that's really cool.
In their honor. So there's trees from bishops from throughout that entire time. So some are bigger, and his is just about a year old, I think, maybe a little bit older.
It was looking good.
Yeah, so it's coming along.
Oh, nice. I like that. So
we took a picture with it. Everybody from the Vocations board, all the priests and everybody, and the seminarians who attend there.
Came out. Yeah,
yep. It's a good picture.
Oh, very nice. And how many seminarians do we have there now?
We have 3 there.
3. Okay. Timmy, Tommy, and who else?
Nick.
Okay. All great guys. Love working with those guys. Wonderful people. The genuinely, actually, irritatingly wonderful young men. They really are. It's off-putting. No, I was kidding. Actually, it's wonderful.
We listened to the podcast, by the way. And we were talking.
Did they really?
Yeah, because we were talking about, we had, when they were all in at World Youth Day, they had been trained by Mr. Walsh on how to send photos during their time, and they were talking about that. And when we were at lunch yesterday,
oh, good.
And they're like, "Oh, you did a great job." And he said, I think it was Tom who said, "Are you sure? Because I thought I heard something on the podcast that maybe we could have done better."
Well, in their defense, I think everybody can do better. They did good enough. Some of them did really well, and then there were others.
Maybe that may have been something along the lines that they were referencing.
That's possible.
Yeah.
So, actually, before we get too far into this conversation, so we talked about the VOAB board. What is a VOAB board, Father?
So VOAB is short for Vocation Advisory Board, which is a board that is comprised of priests from the diocese, but also laymen and women. And we have a permanent deacon on ours as well. Mm-hmm. And there are people from throughout the diocese that just have a good understanding of the vocation to the priesthood and what would be a good candidate for somebody entering the seminary. So it's a board that helps to interview guys. It's a board that helps to kind of promote things. And then based on their recommendation to the bishop is whether or not we accept or say no to a person from entering formation for our diocese. So it's something that's, a real gift because when I first came on, it was, I sat in on a couple of the meetings just when I found out that more than likely I would be coming into the office. And just to see the meeting itself was amazing because you'd get different opinions and everybody was very passionate about what they thought and, what they saw and just the discussions and everything that came out of it. And the cool thing is we have, priests, of course, but we also have women that are moms, that are wives. We have men that are husbands and fathers. And they just come with a completely unique view of things, of what would be a good candidate for the priesthood, of somebody who, in their conversations and they're reviewing their autobiography and they review every piece of the application material and really go over it with that fine-tooth comb of just what stands out, what are some things that are positive, what are some things that are negative, and they just give a good sense of is this man going to be a good fit for the formation of our diocese. And part of that knowing is where we send our guys. So having the Vocation Advisory Board, just having some kind of understanding of what each place is like is so important. And it's a little bit tougher to do that because it's gathering about 12 people that are on the board and making sure that we get to the different seminaries. It's a little more hard to coordinate schedules and everything because a lot of them are working. Priests are, in their parishes. But it's a really good board that just has done, I think, a great job and has really grown over the years. And, we're just blessed to have them, that they say yes to this important ministry and that they give their honest opinion, which is always what we're looking for.
It's a big board. I was surprised how many people are on the board.
Yeah, and we were a couple short just with different things going on in, work and...
Yeah. But it's 12? Like 12 people, roughly?
12 people, yeah.
And, it's something we don't talk often about, but just how much dedication goes into those discussions about someone proceeding into seminary life. There's a lot. I mean, you really do look into it. I mean, there are psychological evaluations, there's medical evaluations, there's these conversations. I mean, it's no small matter to get into seminary.
Yeah, it's a real process of just going through a person's life just to see where they were, where they're at now, and what could be the possibilities for the future of. Again, and we always think of that, is this person open to formation? Is this person open to being instructed, being taught? And really, the word formation is just important because that's what's happening, is that they're going to be sent to a place where they're going to be, challenged in a lot of different ways, spiritually, pastorally, intellectually. There's just a lot of opportunities for them to show that they've grown over the years, but that they're open to even more growth.
That's something I'm not sure I understood until I came to work for the diocese, was just the nature of what a diocese is looking for in people who are interested in the priesthood. That, in a lot of ways, you're looking for someone who's going to be a good shepherd. You're looking for someone who's willing to be educated. I mean, it's no small matter to be a Catholic priest. I mean, you really need to know what you're doing, but more than that, you need to have the heart of a priest, right? And for good or for bad, I mean, a lot of people think about becoming a priest, but may not, number one, have the skill sets, which is fine, you can learn those, but may not have the nature that you're looking for in a priest, right?
Yeah, there's, just, you encounter a lot of different people throughout your experiences, but just to even, like, to put it on par with, like, marriage prep, for us as priests, technically it was like 7 years of preparation. And then I was able to really say, yes, I can do this, with the help of God always. And that's, a beautiful part of the ritual of saying that. But to think of, marriage, is not as long, but, would it benefit, from a longer preparation like that, which would be another, again, because what you're trying to do is form this person into a disciple of where God is calling them to be. And, it's tough, and it's the same for us as we prepare couples for marriage. It's that same discernment, but almost in like a more rapid, you get to meet with them, a couple times before their big day. But just how much work goes into that, and that they're working a lot themselves too. But you want to form, again, a healthy and happy relationship with them and with the Lord. It's really just encountering them all where they're at and trying to help them to see that, that there's a great future and there's a great hope. And it's the same with the seminarians, except most of our work is done in the seminary, where they're kind of placed in a school or placed in a seminary that will help to form them in all those things that priest needs to be, while also looking at their heart. Throughout the whole time, you're just reflecting and you're really challenging yourself to see, is this something that brings me joy? Is this something that brings me that peace and that happiness? Or is it something that's just causing more fear and anxiety? Which there's always, and as married people yourselves, there's always that anxiety before any kind of big commitment. And it's just kind of being able to discern, like, all right, God is calling me to this, and I can work through that anxiety. I can overcome it, but it's still, a kind of a dance in some ways, where you're just kind of seeing where God is in your life and how he's helped you to overcome things. And that's, looking back on my journey, as I just see a lot of that, that God truly did work through me in a lot of different ways that I would have never experienced if I wasn't in the seminary.
I think that's a good point, because when you're talking about, like, discerning a vocation, whether it's priesthood or marriage, like, sometimes we have a tendency to think, oh, if there's doubt, that means it's wrong, when that's not what it means at all. It just means, more discerning or prayer, or I feel like, especially in today's fast-paced world, oh, well, if you have doubt, then it's wrong, move on. That's not the answer at all. You
have to kind of investigate where that doubt is coming from. Is it a faith question? Is it just a lack of confidence?
Fear?
Fear, in a big way. And I think that plays, in our world that does everything so fast, that, as soon as those thoughts come in, like you said, it's kind of like, and I was this way, and at times still am, where it's just, you want to just run, or just like, all right, well, that was good, so I'll see you. But, faith teaches you can't do that. You have to, if this is really where God is calling you, it's about sticking it out. And that sounds worse than it is. You're not just sticking it out, but like confronting that challenge, and I think that's another opportunity for us to grow. And that's really what stretches us, is when we encounter those obstacles, and instead of running and just doing something else, it's like, all right, is this something that I can handle? Is this something that I can grow in, that will make me a better priest, or make me a better husband, or make me a better father?
I think that was something that was on display for me when we went to the seminary yesterday, especially as a lay person. I know probably not a lot of lay people get to go into a seminary and see firsthand what's going on in there. But as a lay person, it was beautiful to see all seminarians in many different stages of their journey. And I'm thinking about at Mass. You could just see, like, they were all in their different places. Like, some were praying, some were reading, and following along with the readings. I mean, some were looking up at the windows, obviously praying in a different way. And I feel like I'm watching all these different men thinking they're all going to have different ways of leading their parishes one day.
Yeah, they're unique in so many ways, but they're united in that same cause, that same desire to serve God with their lives. And I think that's a cool thing. And, not having a seminary here in our own boundaries is tough because, there would be more opportunities, where you could drive by and say like, oh, that's where guys study, It wouldn't be that much of a mystery of when you do drive by one and it's like gated and everything. And they're like, oh God, is that really where they go? And are they able to come out? Like there's a lot of questions that, many people have, but just having that opportunity to kind of dispel some of those things and just to be able to, help a man when he's thinking about it. And that's one of the big things with our visit yesterday was just kind of seeing, as we've talked about before, the new program of priestly formation and how we can send our best candidates and just have a candidate that's really going to embrace the formation there. And it was just cool just to have our people come up and just talk to a lot of the professors, the students there. So you kind of get the best of both sides of everything. And I thought that was really cool in our conversation with the men who just entered formation. And we talked about the Propaedeutic Stage, which was just before you really enter into seminary philosophy studies or theological studies. This is like a preparation time for a person that's getting ready to really commit themselves to the life in the seminary and eventually life in the priesthood. And it just kind of teaches you a lot of the basic things and helps you to become, at first, a good Catholic gentleman, but then someone whose heart is truly modeled after the heart of Christ. Mm-hmm. And that's...
So let's talk about the Propaedeutic Stage real quick. That's kind of a new element for the seminary process. Can you give us some of the background on like where that came from and how it's been adopted in the U.S.?
Yeah, so Propaedeutic, it came from Rome, from the Ratio a few years ago, where Pope Francis, really looked at the way priests were being formed and came up with, a good way of doing things that would help build a person up just by looking at the times and looking at the things that a man goes through, and how different they were when the last one was came out. So we're on currently the 6th edition, and the 5th edition, was set for a specific time, and where guys were at that point, and it was more. It was simple for me because it was more academic based, where it was like a guy could come in and say, I've had 2 years of college. What would my overall years look like, 6 years before priesthood? And you can kind of give them a better estimate of what their formation would look like. But now it's really, again, handling each person as a unique situation and just seeing, you take one stage at a time. So we start off with the Propaedeutic, and this is, again, to see if a person is not capable, isn't the right word, but is able to kind of live in a community, can enter into the life of a community, can do some of the pastoral work, and show that they're, ready to go on to further, studies of philosophy and theology, while building themselves up. And, especially Propaedeutic is really focused on the human side of formation. So there's the 4 dimensions of pastoral, intellectual, spiritual, and then human that, when I started, was 4 pillars, and the words really change over time to try to encapsulate what it means, and it's trying to build a person up into the best that they can be by having a good balance of all those things, and that's where Pope Francis and Rome were looking at were the big struggles, were these human, the side of things, the formation of kind of, we come from. And I say we, meaning myself, as I'm probably a millennial. I guess I fall into that category. I don't know if I'm 85.
What year were you born?
85.
Mike's good at this stuff.
No, you're... hold on. I'm a Gen Xer.
I think he's a Gen Z.
I'm a Gen Z.
No, he's not Gen Z.
What's Gen Z?
That one's recent. Gen Z is after millennial.
Oh.
I think you might be a millennial.
I think he's a millennial.
I
then.
think technically you're referred to as an elder millennial.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
That is what it is. It's called elder millennial. But it's okay. You're looking for your age. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I was driving before GPS, so, I know how to use a map and things like that.
Proud of you.
But I did have a cell phone at that time, so I was lucky in that case. It wasn't one of those ones, and I remember the ones attached to our car, where you had to use those. But
Wait, did you have a beeper?
I had a beeper.
I did too.
I didn't have a beeper because I was only probably like 14 when they came out.
I was using it for work.
Yeah.
You were using it for work?
That's the only beeper I ever had was for work. I always wanted one. Then I got one. I went, this thing is terrible. Now my boss can get me anytime. I had no idea about that.
I know what that's like.
Now you do.
With my phone.
And I treat you the same way my boss treated me. Terribly.
Now it would be good if we had the YouTube video on so you could have seen the look.
So go back to the Propaedeutic Stage.
Yep.
I was thinking about that. I was trying to come up with an analogy for it, and I'm not sure I've been able to come up with one that's particularly accurate, but it kind of reminds me of like a boot camp. Because I remember when I first heard about the Propaedeutic Stage, I was imagining it was later on. It didn't occur to me that it was at the very beginning, where this is really in military parlance. This is really an opportunity to get to know someone, break them down, and build them up. And depending on what kind of military career you had.
No, you definitely break them down. I just don't think I don't think the seminary was the breaking them down. Military, absolutely.
No, but in talking and hearing him talk about how the formation that goes involved and getting used to a new lifestyle and things like that it really did. I mean, military boot camps are 8 weeks, but this is how long is a Propaedeutic Stage? Generally?
It could be anywhere, 2 to 3 years.
Right. You're talking, it's a bit longer, but I mean, it is kind of, the person who goes into a Propaedeutic Stage, if they're successful, is kind of come out different.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, so actually, it's 1 to 3 years, because it's a very intensive year. It's really what's the signature of the Propaedeutic, where it's got to be a complete calendar year. So you start on August 1st, 2024, then technically you're still in that stage until August 1st, 2025. And then once you've completed that, depending on if you're ready to move on, if you're in need of more time, you can do that. So that gives us a little bit more understanding, like, did he change after that year? Which should have, because it's a very intensive year of just focusing really on building a foundation of things you're going to need for the rest of your life. And God willing, you go through all those stages to become a priest. But it's just a great, where it kind of just allows you to really focus on what it is you're looking to do or trying to do.
So maybe just to kind of put things in a little bit of context for the listeners, like when we went to St. Joseph Seminary, when we went to the seminary, it was the board, the Vocations board, myself, somehow I got myself in there. And then, we went to the seminary, we attended Mass, which you got to celebrate.
Do you want to tell people where the seminary is? I don't think we really mentioned that much.
What a seminary is?
No. Yes, please tell the listeners.
That's what I was like. I was like, what?
Where it is, like the unique. It's not in the state of New Jersey. I mean, it's in Yonkers,
right.
New York, and it's no small feat to get there because it's
it's about 2 hours from here. 2 hours, but depending on traffic. Yeah.
It's in a beautiful area of north of the Bronx, and it depending on where you are, you can look out over the Highlands up there. It's a gorgeous area. Jen's favorite bridge is right there.
I love the George Washington Bridge. I love it. But what I loved about the seminary is that it was nestled into a neighborhood.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you drive up the hill, you're surrounded by homes, and there it is. It is beautiful, rolling kind of hills.
It's a huge property. It doesn't look that big when you first get there, but it's a huge place that it used to be even bigger, but then the highway took a lot of that land.
Yeah, I went there several years ago, and it was so beautiful there, and I was just walking around the grounds waiting for an event to start, mostly snooping. And I went into the back area and where the rolling hills are, and I may have meditated back there because I was so moved by the quiet and the view.
Yeah.
It was great.
I got there an hour and a half early because I was afraid of being late. So I walked the grounds in the back, and it was beautiful. So then we got there. Everybody got there. We went to Mass. That was celebrated by Bishop Mazza.
Yeah, who's director there. So, the seminary is really, as if we were able to meet more professors from all over. So, but the majority come from New York, from Brooklyn, Rockville Center. So a lot of the New York places are represented. Now, before I went up there, I always considered New York City just one place. But, then you see how diverse it is and how big it is. So that was... I don't like driving up there because I don't like the George Washington Bridge. So when I went,
you have to understand, Father and I are from the sticks of South Jersey.
Yeah, we're from the boondocks. So,
so this is, the big city is.
All right,
it's a very scary place for us.
So. I love it.
I always say I end up going a new way almost every time I go up or when I leave because I get stuck in a lane and I'm too chicken to kind of cut people off.
I respect that.
So then we had lunch with some of the seminarians and some of the professors and other priests.
Yeah, some of the propaedeutics, the guys that were there. So it was really, really interesting. And a great homily, too, from Bishop Massa gave a wonderful
took notes
homily.
During the homily.
Yeah.
2 people on the board were like, "What, are you writing a story?" I'm like, "No, I'm taking notes for myself because this is good stuff, like personal growth."
Yeah, and just a very good way of explaining things too. And Bishop Massa, in talking to our guys, has just a great heart, but is a great teacher as well. So it really shows in his homilies and just the way that he does things, and just always very, just very clear and just very caring. In every instance that I've talked with him, just a good man and again a good leader. But we have a good, and some of our priests know those priests that studied together in Rome, because a lot of them started in New York but then went to Rome for their further study. So there are still connections there, and our guys are just a great, I think, bridge to a lot of things. So especially at Seton Hall, where they kind of connected some of the priests that studied together too from New York and Newark. So a lot of good things that are just happening, I think, and just that great spirit of our guys that are there make a big difference. But it's all a reflection of what they received there, and they receive really good formation. And we're blessed in the seminaries we use that they all receive good formation. But it was really on display yesterday at St. Joe's.
Yeah, the seminarians from our diocese were very relaxed. And we had some great conversations, and I mean they were talking about their camaraderie there, but they were also talking about their camaraderie with their fellow seminarians from the diocese who were in Seton Hall, and looking forward to getting back together, and so that was nice to see. And then they went on their way to their next classes, and we got to meet the young men, very young men, right, 2021, that are in this propaedeutic stage.
And if I could just go back, I think one of the most human things that during the announcements, so during lunch they make these announcements of what's going on in the house. They have a Super Bowl block pool that's going on, and of course, who do they say? If you would like to participate, please see Nick Nachione, one of our Camden seminarians, and he would take their money. So it's just like, oh man, if that's true Ventnor, Atlantic City representation there.
Of course, there's a guy from Atlantic City doing the gambling.
There was a lot of laughs at that one.
But yeah, then we got to meet, in just a very personal setting, I guess, and again, just the good sense of humor that they have. So it's the Propaedeutic Stage, and we went downstairs, and they called it the Propa Dungeon.
I took a picture
Nice.
of the sign.
But we all sat together, and it was kind of a reflection of what they experienced too. It's a lot of that being open with formation. It's a lot of being honest with yourself and honest with others. And when there's 8 guys in their propaedeutic stage or propaedeutic house or wing at the seminary, and they, you get to know, when you live in that close confines with just 8 guys, you really get to know each other in a faster way than you would. So it was just I thought very just open, and the guys knew each other and were very comfortable. And they talked about some serious stuff that was going on in their lives and what they've experienced, good and bad, at the propaedeutic stage. and how it's really changed them, I think, in a lot of good ways, and not only them but their families. How they've adjusted, and it was really just an interesting opportunity, and we were able to ask anything that we wanted, and
like you said, they were open about it. Like, I think that was like getting to understand like the definition of what was going on with the propaedeutic stage, but then getting to see what that means in real life, right? So at this seminary, it's the 8 men that are in the group together, and as Bishop Mazza explained, they're their own community. Like, of course, they interact with the other seminarians off and on, but they're their own community, almost like an order is kind of how he explained it to me, because they're in a totally different stage than the rest of the gentlemen there. And like, for instance, when you get there, you give up your phone and your computer. So you don't have any access to technology, I think, except Monday after breakfast till Sunday at dinner or something similar to that. And that it was a challenge, of course.
Monday after breakfast to Sunday at dinner?
No, I think it was Saturday.
Sorry, Saturday.
To Sunday.
Saturday morning to Sunday night. Should have just kept it simple. So you don't have, that's the only time you're allowed technology. And we were asking them like how that was. And they said at the beginning it was difficult, not necessarily because, they had to be checking in with their friends all the time. It was because this is the first time a lot of them have moved away from home and they're close to their families, and they were missing their families very much. And similarly, their families were missing them. And then, Father Adam, I think you brought up a good point, how important the families are in a vocation. So how both had to get used to that.
Yeah, the support, and the one guy, I would have never thought of, and this is why we have like a good board, and we have people that are able to ask different questions that I would never think of. But the one guy talked about communicating and how difficult it was because, even though it wasn't like he was given a lot of time to say, oh, by the way, you talk to your friends and say, I won't have my phone till Saturday. So they get like 100 messages on their phone. And then it was just kind of working those little things out, like, just trying to communicate that better to friends and family, people that were trying to contact them, that they would get it, but it would just be a while. And that if there was ever any emergency, they could always contact, the priest who was in charge, Father Joe Holcomb. And, again, another amazing just leader and just a good man and a good priest that really becomes like that father figure for them, and he's one of the pieces there. And they have a spiritual director and things that work together again, but they're really building up that individual by bringing them together, because I think that's it's a challenge, because at first it doesn't kind of make sense. It's you're forming these men to live in a community, but then eventually they're going to live on their own. And we look ahead to our diocese and just know that eventually it's going to be one priest, one parish for a while. But having those friendships, having those relationships are so important. So when I'm having a bad day or a rough day, I know I can call my buddies up, that I went to seminary with, because they know me, again, because you live together and you share these things over that time. And they can challenge you at different times. They can really like push you, if I'm just complaining about something, they can really call me out on it without any issue, and it's just like, oh man, you're right, where it's just one of those, and you need it. And just like a husband and wife would go through that same struggle, that same challenge of, you have those bad days. Not every day is, I'm excited to be married. There's days where it's
I don't know what you're talking about.
Where it's a challenge. And the same, I think, with the priest, where it's, you wake up and you say, I'm going to be a priest, I'm going to be married today, I'm not going to jeopardize anything, but it's just going to be tough. And the Holy Spirit works in so many ways, but it's in those relationships that we need, and we need those healthy relationships that will continue to always help us to grow in holiness, and like direct us towards God more. And I think that's what the Propaedeutic is really planting those seeds of, giving you the tools without putting pressure on academics. So guys can take basic classes. So they'll do like maybe some catechism classes, like go through the catechism, go through the one class that sounded very interesting was Catholic Voices, where they went through the centuries, and started, Augustine and all those, and then ended with like 21st century, 20th century saints, where
like Dorothy Day, and I think they were saying, you
see like just the great gift of our intellectual heritage, and just how far we can trace it, and how we've grown too in so many ways. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a taste of what, quote unquote seminary will be like, because technically this is like before entering any kind of seminary. So it's an interesting, again, stage that we're still discovering more about. And if you look up Propaedeutic, you'll see that there's several houses throughout the country that have this, and each one is a little different, and what we experienced yesterday was very interesting and just very affirming for, I think what we're hoping to have in our formation.
I mean, I even took home, going back to the technology, after that first month or so, they were saying they don't miss it. Like when they turn on their phones on a Saturday and see all of these text messages, they're kind of like, they just want to turn it off and just say, yeah, I don't need this. And one of the young men was talking about how, at night, right, you might be having trouble sleeping, so you might turn on your phone and listen to music. And he was like, I don't have my phone to listen to music, so I pick up the Bible, or I pick up a spiritual book, or I pray. And I was like, in my mind, that really stuck with me, because I was like, what a great habit just for me to get into. Of course you reach for it, but I was like, why don't I just spend time with God?
Yeah, and that's something I think we all fall into, where it's easy just to put something on, and that's what I always like, something in the background, but how much of a distraction that is without you really seeing it, you know. And then when you remove it, it's like, wow, things are a lot better, things are a lot clearer in some ways.
And they were spending a lot of time out in the community. I think they were doing work at a nursing home, and I think they said a shelter, and then they get to come back and, like you said, share in those small group, or those 8-men group sessions about their time.
Yeah, and they were sharing. They read through different books and things together. So they were reading "Be Healed" by Dr. Bob Schutz, which is a very famous book, and it's a very interesting one. Again, where an encounter with Christ truly changes you, and that's what they're experiencing. And one of the men said, this is like a long retreat experience where they're just encountering Christ and being able to reflect upon things and being able to see just how Christ is truly not only healing them but changing them, and becoming, a priest. Again, is years down the road, but these are the first steps that you need, where you really have to take a look at yourself. And I think this would have been very beneficial for me in my formation, just to see the healing that went into it, because it took me a while to really learn how to work spiritual direction. It took me a while how to work, this counseling that was there. And I was blessed with, having a spiritual director right in the house and a counselor that was assigned, it's part of the seminary formation. So I was able to see them as frequently as I needed. But how much more I probably would have gotten from it earlier, instead of just going through the motions sometimes, because you don't know what you're doing and you're afraid to kind of try different things or to say things. But this was, I just see a complete kind of overhaul to that. And, that's something I've noticed too in formation just since my time. The guys that we have been like that in a lot of different ways, and how much this is going to help that process too.
The other man that leads that session with Father Holcomb, he is a counselor, or?
Yes, yeah.
So one of the things that really struck me is he says like once a week, they meet once a week, I believe, if I was correct, and they'll talk about a different emotion, right? So I thought that was phenomenal. I wish I had a deeper dive into all the different emotions that we could possibly feel. Yeah. I think that I can't imagine how that will strengthen our future priests.
And just to help them become healthier. Again, when you acknowledge that right away, and you can understand, all right, this is, something of anger or something of fear. How can we, handle it in a healthy way? Because we're going to experience it. And, it just kind of gives them better tools, I think, to be able to deal with that, and to, again, it's not going to remove the struggle, but hopefully help them through it.
What?
It was a great experience.
It was.
Just and to talk to the guys, and I said it, if that was me in my first 6 months of formation, I don't think I would have been as open or honest as they were, because they kind of shared everything.
You don't think so?
No, not in that sense, where I would have still been very guarded, of what I said. And
but do you think that maybe that, going back to this sort of boot camp philosophy that I have about it, do you think that might have changed? You would have become more receptive to it if you had been in it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Going back to, I basically what I'm saying is I think I'm right. That the Propaedeutic Stage really is sort of a boot camp.
I think it's a boot camp.
And you not only are you getting the tools you're going to need, but you're sort of being, because so much is being, so many diversions are being taken away, you're really able to focus like you've never been able to focus before. And, you're following the guidance and things like that. And it sounds to me like it's, quite, intense.
Some of the men said actually that something along the lines of, or maybe it was Father Holcomb who was saying, their friends are jealous because they're like, wow, you get to take a whole year just to talk to God, not be around technology, and focus on spirituality. They wish that they could have been, who doesn't maybe wish they could just take some time to grow with God and in your spirituality. So I thought that was really interesting that people their age are saying like, I wish we could take a year and do that and not have to go into work every day and be attached to our phones.
Yeah, because it builds a foundation, because that's, I think, one of the biggest struggles, after leaving the seminary. You have scheduled time for prayer. Your chapel is just 20 feet down the hallway, where you kind of take those things for granted, where it's, at 7:30 I got to pray morning prayer. But then when they put you in a parish, all of a sudden it's like that freedom's there. You still have your schedule where you still have to pray, but then you begin to see the challenges. Like you get an emergency call at 3 a.m, like waking up at 7:30 might not be the best option for you the next day, or praying at that time. So it's really trying to figure those things out. But if you have that deep sense of prayer, and I think that's really where it all starts, is just knowing what the importance of it, of staying connected always to God and trying to listen to Him and talk to Him, it's no matter what they do in life. And I think that was the other good thing, where he said the first real lesson they had was how to behave like a Christian gentleman. So how to, table manners, when not to wear a hat. And, those are all things that we see, I see it in the parish, where people are just not confused, but they just they're just clueless when it comes to, dressing up for, a funeral, It's showing that respect for other things. So it's, I think it's a positive. Again, it's more challenging for us, to kind of help discern where a guy should be and if they're doing well, if they're moving on to the next stage. But I think it's going to bear a lot of fruit.
Mike, I have a question for you.
No, I would not be capable of doing any of this.
No, Father Adam was bringing up a really good point about the importance of the camaraderie. I would say that, we're in the office together 8 hours a day. If I'm in a crisis, can I call you?
No. And I really wish you wouldn't either. But by all means, talk to someone who, appreciates your concerns.
I thought so. I just wanted to check.
I would like to say that that goes for everybody. Don't feel like you need to call me.
Family and friends.
It's a short list of family that can actually reach out to me. Sure, anybody who needs me is fine. I just can't promise what you're going to get.
What about your answer?
Well, I may answer, but I may not give you the best advice. So.
Everybody, I'll be calling Father Adam.
Okay. I actually think that this stuff is good. And I've said for years that the life of a priest is a difficult priest. It's a people don't see all the stuff that, they don't, there's always this push for should priests be married, and I'm not theologian enough to have an opinion on it, but I can tell you that if we had married priests, we'd have a lot more divorced priests, because it's tough. I mean, it's to be committed so completely to your flock, but then you also have your wife and your children at home. It's a hard one for me to get my mind wrapped around as to who would be able to do something like that without it becoming a terrible burden on the family. So every time that's why it's so important for priests to take days off. And it's so difficult for priests to take days off in this day and age because we have fewer priests. But, Bishop Sullivan doesn't mess around with us. He's like, you get a day off a week. You are to take that day off and go do something, or get away, do whatever is required of you, because you need to be able to rehab. And we're talking with a priest now that I'm telling you I already know he burns a candle at both ends because he's the rector of the cathedral as well as the head of the vocations department. So it's like, you better be taking your time off, Father.
Well, yeah, and I'm always impressed by our families because like a husband and wife really never get a day off, in that sense, where they're,
that's true,
raising children, they're together, but they do, again, they work together. It's a little different, but it's still that same dedication and devotion where hopefully that's what they're learning. Like any vocation is a true giving of yourself, whether it's for us giving ourselves to the church and to the people of God, or to a husband and wife, of knowing that when you give your life to something, it's a risk in that sense that it's always uncertain, but what you're hoping for and what you're prepared for is like no matter what comes, it's always doable, I guess, where, and, it's a challenge sometimes to have those days off. And I know guys that, we miss it every once in a while. And, but it is important to recharge, but the same, with our families too, it's just, it's a challenge no matter what. And I think seminary formation is coming around to that, to see that, it's going to be more of a challenge, but this is where we depend on the help of so many lay people that can come in and really assist us in different ways and become those, missionary disciples is always what we're trying to produce now, is that this is someone who's willing to share their faith, willing to go out of their comfort zone at times, and you probably count that on so many times as a husband and wife where it's, again, you're together with another person and how you remain that same individual, but now you're united always, like you don't think of one without the other. And hopefully that's what they see us, as they see a priest, they know he's a person that prays, knows he's a person that ministers, knows he's a person that's trying to get better, and always kind of being, that formation never ends. And that it's something that starts off in such a beautiful way where it's, again, they give you that foundation, and the Propaedeutic Stage, I think, does it. Just gives you that understanding of what it means to truly be a man of prayer and truly be a man that's able to do different things. It's not just focused on one set. It's not just a guy that can study and study and study, but a guy that's well-rounded, because that's really what connects, and dependent on your parish, you might have those people that are professionals, you might have those people that are just workers, that are working 6 days a week, and if you're not connecting with them or understanding where they're coming from, you're going to miss out on a lot.
So with just a few minutes left in the podcast, what does this mean for vocations in the Diocese of Camden, and how can we help grow vocations in the Diocese of Camden?
Yeah, hopefully it gives us more confidence of the priests that will be coming out of all this formation. And, I'm always proud of the men that we have. I think they're very well-rounded, and, none are perfect, but it's something that they're working on and something that they're growing in, and something that they're open to. And they're just great men. And I think, this formation, while adding some more layers of challenges at times, will ultimately be a good thing for us. And we'll be looking at, St. Joe's is the closest one of the closest with a Propaedeutic Stage or Propaedeutic wing of our house. But there's just, again, that call is so important and needs to be nurtured and needs to be shared in a great way. So it's a good opportunity, I think, for us just to reflect on each guy and how important that calling is and how can they build it up or nourish it.
So in the Diocese of Camden, if there's some young fellow listening to this, what can they do to start this process of discerning whether they have a call to seminary life, priesthood?
Definitely first reach out to us, because we love to talk to you and just to see where you're at in your journey, and just understand again where that call is coming from, how you understand that vocation, and how can we help you to understand it as well. And I always recommend, prayer is essential. So making sure that you pray, going to Mass a few times a week, on Sundays, of course, but throughout the week, just trying to get those opportunities of encountering Christ through the Eucharist, I think is key. Having that time to pray to the Lord and to encounter Him there. And then doing things like, being involved in your parish, so becoming a lector, becoming an extraordinary minister of communion, of being able to do things that a priest will do in a different way, but just trying to get those experiences because, if you go up to become a lector and you're like, oh man, this is terrible. Like maybe the priesthood is not going to be for you, or it's something again where, you're reading through the scriptures and you say, I can kind of take it or leave it. It's not something, but if it's, something where the word touches you and it's like, I want to go tell somebody this, I really want to share like how this journey is or how Christ has changed me through His word. Like, those are good things to kind of reflect on.
Well, Father, thank you very much for sitting down with us today. We really appreciate that. Yep. If you're interested or someone is interested in becoming a priest, then go to camdenpriest.org and find out more. And of course, you always go up to your parish priest and to know who to contact and when. And certainly if you see Father Adam anywhere, feel free to tackle him. Or Father Josh Nevitt, his right-hand man. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, and we'll talk to you again next week. See ya.